Halves just fit together, line up some pins and it just fits together like that. There will be road wheels attached underneath, so when you put it together there'll be road wheels in between there, but what happens when you put it together, there's actually a gap where the seams join up, like where the two parts join. There's actually a bit of a rough seam gap sort of thing in there. Now at first I thought, oh, this is going to be fun to clean up, but what actually happens is these springs, the leaves will go over the top and will actually cover that gap up. You won't even see it, so don't worry too much about cleaning that gap up. I'll clean it up a little bit, because you can, once that part's on, looking underneath there and maybe see it. If you were judging the model you might see it, but yeah, I'll just clean it up a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about it, but it's just something to be aware of. Okay, so at this point I'm going to deviate from the instructions a little bit, because well, I'll show you rather than tell you, but we've got bottom part of our hull is pretty well done there. What interior detail there is already inside there. We've got the top part of the hull is done, well trimmed out and sanded and ready to go on there, and well, I'm not sure if you call it a turret or not, but the top part here, what I'm going to do, rather than the instructions say to start putting the gun and everything inside here, I'm not going to do that, because I want to paint in there first. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to put the backing plate on here, the front plate, just sort of fill in the sides, and then I'm going to paint the inside of there and the inside of here before I put the top part of the hull on, because once you put that on, you're obviously not going to be able to paint too well inside it. So I'm going to deviate from the instructions, paint inside, then I'll start filling in the rest of the detail on the top part of the turret here before I put it on. And once we've done that, it's just a matter of adding the small details around the place, like the jerry cans, the wire rope and so on. So I'll get on with that. Okay, so we've got to the point now where it's just about fully assembled. There's a few other little bits and pieces I want to put on, a couple of bunk rolls I want to strap to the front there. I've made a couple of sandbags to fit at the back, so I'm going to put a rope over there that ties them down. The paint, it's just the basic colour I put on there, nothing flash, just sprayed on the basic colour. What I'm going to do now is put on some future floor polish, like spray that on. That'll give it a nice glossy coat. That'll allow me to do two things. One of them is to put the decals on there. They like to have a smooth surface, otherwise you're going to get like a haze effect around the outside of them. They like a smooth surface to go onto, so the future floor polish will do that. And also the other thing is it'll give it a coating, so when I go to do the washing and the weathering and so on, if I make a mistake I can clean it off, because there's a coat over the paint. If I don't put a coat over the paint, when I go to clean off the mess, sometimes it'll take the paint with it. And the other thing is that this is a flat colour, so if I go to do a pin wash or any sort of wash, it won't actually follow the seam lines or the lines that I want the wash to run into. What will actually happen is when you touch the tank, it will actually spread over the entire surface. It won't just follow the lines, and that will just stain all the paint. So the future polish will stop that from happening as well. Once I've done the pin washes and like a basic overall oil wash, I'll hit it with a flat coat, and the flat coat then gets rid of that sheen, so it makes the tank look like it is a flat colour, which it's supposed to be. And it also helps the pastels, which I'm going to do some weathering with pastels. It'll help the pastels stick to the surface. They don't like sticking to smooth surfaces, but a rough flat finish pastel will stick really well, so it makes the weathering a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to start putting the decals on now, or decals, however you want to pronounce it. I've decided to go with the version that hasn't got too many decals, just the number on the front and the back. That's about all there's going to be on there. So haven't got a lot of decal work, but I'll go through how I do decals. One of the first things I do is with decals, around the outside there's a thin slither of clear plastic, and if it doesn't stick properly to the surface, that little slither is what will silver or ghost, so that you can see it. It'll be like a real pale white shade, and it ruins the effect. So what I do is, normally before I start wetting them, I actually trim as close as I can to the colour, and then that way when it softens up enough in the water, I can pull that clear piece away. So if it doesn't stick correctly, at least you haven't got that clear strip around the outside. But you shouldn't have any problem anyway, as long as you've got a nice glossy surface that you're going to stick these onto. So once I've trimmed that away, then I'll cut it out of the card. In this case I'm just using a knife because it's in a strange position. So I just pop that out of there like so, and then I'll dip that in the water. I've just got some warm, mild, soapy water there. I'll just dip that in there, let it rest for a little while, pull it out and let it hang on the side till it becomes workable, where it starts to slide off the backing. Then I'll use a small brush, just dip it in the water, and where I'm going to put the decal on the vehicle, I'm just going to put a wet patch, put the decal down beside it and slide it off with the brush onto the tank. And once it's on there, because I've already wet the surface, I can move it around and position it where I like. Now once I get it in a position, I normally put the brush in the middle and roll it off to the sides. And what that does is like a squeegee effect. It pushes the water out from underneath the decal. And once that water's out from underneath there, I'll let it sit for a little bit. Then I'll use Mr. Mark Cipher, just brush a little bit of that over the top, and what that'll do is make it sit right down. If there's any seam lines, deformities in the surface, the decal will sit down over them nicely. Don't be afraid once you use this, they will become soft, and they do wrinkle up. Don't panic when you see them wrinkle up. It's just part of what this does. It softens them right up. They wrinkle up, but as they dry, they stretch back out and sit down correctly. So that's how I do decals, and probably on a later project where I've got bigger ones to use, I'll do a bit more detail, and I'll actually show you as I'm doing it. But because these are so small and my camera doesn't focus in very far, I'll just give you a quick rundown like I have, and I'll just go ahead and do it. Just a quick add-on to the decal thing, something I forgot to tell you was I also use cotton buds. Once the decal's down, I'll just put this in the centre and roll it from side to side.